The background on this project is we had identified that there was a real lack of tools for, back up one step further. We identified that we didn't know anything about the record-keeping tools that existed for produce growers, and with some funding from the Vermont Agency of Agriculture and the Vermont Housing Conservation Board Farm Viability Program, we were able to take a closer look at what was out there, assess them against what we understood to be the requirements for record keeping related to produce safety, and come up with some interim recommendations that led us to actually developing a system with Michael Stenta through FarmOS. The we in this case is myself and Michael Kilpatrick. Michael used to farm in Granville, New York, northern Washington County, New York, and is currently farming somewhere out in Ohio near Don, and also running running a farm consulting business as well. So Michael was able to help me get through some of the review of requirements, in which we leaned heavily on the PSA summary of those requirements as well. So purpose of today's call is to walk you through what we've done, where we've landed, and get your feedback on all of that, including making sure that we understood what you all summarized in terms of the produce safety rule requirements, but also very interested in everybody's feedback on usability of the tool and other ideas. So with that, this is a presentation I did at the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association meeting this winter to summarize where we had gotten at that point. And so I think the folks on the call probably understand the why of record keeping, and why we're doing what we were doing. The project, really the key thing that this project was aimed at was developing a short list of digital produce traceability solutions to try to make that record keeping a bit easier for folks to accomplish. And you can see our original plan was review what was out there, come up with a short list, pilot some of the options from that short list, and then roll out a program of training and technical assistance. Like any good plan, it didn't go to plan, and I'll tell you why. So these were the general requirements summarized from the produce safety rule, thanks to the PSA folks and some of your the individual record keeping slides in each module at the time we did this. And then also, I think since that point, since we did this, I think it was Kristen mainly developed the guidance, lowercase g guidance document on record keeping.
I had a lot of help with that.
Thank you. Good point. We did include a farmer survey. Actually, this was done prior to my involvement in this project, but there was a survey of growers regarding record keeping and tracking and traceability. And the key points here is that many were already doing some sort of tracking related to their harvesting and their packing. And you can see some of the level of detail they were getting into. Much of it was handwritten in field notebooks. Many, but not all, were labeling the crops at that time. This is fall, winter of 2014. Very, very few were using automated pre-printed labeling systems. As part of that survey, we also assessed technology use on the farm, and 100% use a computer, about 3/4 using a smartphone or tablet, and about a third using a smartphone in the field as part of their harvest record system. So we're trying to get a sense for what platforms people might be using. We also took a look at the survey took a look at buyer's perspective as well, trying to understand how tracking, traceability, and record keeping might be able to ease the market channels. So buyers, these are some of the anecdotal feedback bits of anecdotal feedback coming from buyers. A lot of it has to do with legibility or just very clearly incorrect labels being on a product that they're receiving, or no labels at all. Grower obstacles to record keeping, some of the usual suspects: time, we're a small operation, we're stretched thin, lack of a good system, and specifically something that's easy to use. And then the other challenge, of course, at least in Vermont, is the diversity of crops being grown by a single enterprise and the complexity that introduces for some of the record keeping. And so the bottom line is what we heard from all this was make it quick, easy, and flexible. This was what folks were looking for. And so the main thing I want to focus on today was what we did and where we landed. And so Michael Kilpatrick and I looked at over 60 software solutions that indicated they had some sort of record keeping or traceability component to them. Based on initial review, 17 were selected for further study, and that down select either had to do with the cost of the solution, its applicability. For example, it might be really intended for tracking processed foods or food manufacturing rather than produce, or it just lacked some critical component of what was needed. We took a look at 5 really in-depth, and at this time, back in the winter, we were still looking into emerging solutions. Sorry. And so this is our initial ranking. We looked at Ag Squared in depth, that is Ag Squared, FarmOS, Tend, GapPro, HarvestMark, and FoodLogic Q, and ranked them according to not only the FSMA produce safety rule requirements in the bottom, but also grower requirements of cost. Is it mobile friendly? Does it allow off-network use by multiple language? Ease of use, data export or import, and is it customizable? And we can get into more on each of these, but these are just some screenshots of each and some summary assessments of each of them. Ag Squared, we looked at FarmOS, and that's where we ended up going, as we'll get into in a moment. GapPro, HarvestMark, and FoodLogic Q. Where we landed was there really none of the solutions that were commercially available off the shelf addressed all of the requirements that we saw, especially with regard to the produce safety rule associated requirements. The other thing is they really aren't set up to cater to small, medium-sized operations that are highly diverse in terms of the crops they produce. So while good traceability software was available, nothing really was a complete solution besides GapPro. The issue with GapPro was it really lacked a number of pretty significant record-keeping requirements associated with produce safety rule, and in speaking with the firm that's responsible for it, didn't really seem interested in doing a whole lot of new product development or revision. And so where we had landed at this time was best near-term option, maybe Google Sheets plus a traceability option. So many of the growers we work with are using customized spreadsheets for much of this. And so we were looking at what could we do to ease onboarding of digital record keeping for folks by coming up with spreadsheet templates and things like that.